Hello, everyone. This is JD Calderon, and this is Indy Comics Explained. And today I'm with Travis Hanson, the incredible artist of Life of the Party, Bean, and the No Mercy card game. So, how you doing, Travis?
I'm doing good, JD. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Now, Travis,
hmm
let everybody know, because I know you, but let
Okay.
everybody know who you are, what you've done, how you go about it, that sort of thing.
Well, you said my name's Travis Hanson. I'm a freelance illustrator and indie creator. I did a Eisner-nominated comic, which I have to actually finish, called The Bean. And I also do a daily strip called Life of the Party, which is the biggest thing I've ever done. I've done several games, not just No Mercy. I finished Goblin's Breakfast. I've got two on my plate right now that I'm working on, and Life of the Party is going to be a game as well. So we've got that coming, and I'm always picking up new projects here and there and commissions as well. I've done 11 Kickstarters, and all but one has been successful. So there's always something going on in this household. So we want to keep it that way. I like.
Got you. So let me ask you a question, Travis.
Yeah, ask me anything. Man.
When you start when we were talking about young Travis,
Oh,
little Travis, a while ago, right? Now, what got you interested in comics, literature, that sort of thing? What were the things that motivated you to say that's the thing I want to do?
Well, okay, so if you take the Wayback Machine, I mean, I'm very lucky. My mom is an artist, so she was always encouraging, and but she did hand painted tiles growing up, and but there was always opportunity for me to do stuff, which was she always had supplies for me, always paper, just let me draw what I wanted to draw. Um, but what got me down the path that I did was Rankin Bass's The Hobbit. I had
Mm,
never seen anything like that, and the style and the animation was absolutely incredible. It feels European. The cartoon, it has this very unique style to it, and I thought, these guys knew how to draw dwarves. I wasn't too hip on some of their elven designs, but man, it's still, you had these orcs and monsters, and Smog was the design on Smog was incredible, and I was just like, oh man, it just sucked me right in.
mm,
And then as I got a little older, my I was about 8 or 9. I can remember my grandma. We went to the 99-cent store when it first opened. So this is a long time ago, and I found a Doctor Strange comic, a graphic novel. Doctor Strange graphic novel. It was like a little novella, and
mm,
I can still remember it because it had his backstory, and I've never been able to find it since. I've looked for it because I would love to get another copy of that. And then my aunt ended up living with us for several years, and she was into ElfQuest, and she was into D&D and
ah,
all these other elements of fantasy and comics. And so when I was about 11 or 12 was when I got into D&D,
mm,
and and then we moved on to other games. And I can remember looking through the manuals, and the
mm,
art was like unlike anything I had ever seen before. So a 13-year-old, you're filling his head with just fantasy, and if you look at the the deities book and the player's manual, and the line art was just gorgeous, and I'm like, oh, that's what I wanted to do. And then I started picking up, as most young men from my or people from my age, I had my X-Men run, so I was
mm.
really big into X-Men, and then I started finding indies, and once I found indies, a whole new world opened up, comic wise. I started to realize that there was so much more incredible storytelling in an indie comic than there was. I'm not knocking the big comics, but they
Mm.
just went on and on and on. And I can remember in the '90s what stopped me from buying Marvel and DC was, with Marvel I had to buy 11 books just to keep up with one storyline, and I was done. I mean, I was
Mm.
trying to get my own career up, and I had a small family at the time. I'm like, I can't afford They were no longer 75 cents a book.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it was just, too much for me. And then I found Bone.
Mm.
And
Nice.
I went through Bone and I looked at it and I'm like, this is what I want to do. And it was right at that verge of when web comics were starting.
Mm.
And I decided, well, you know what, a black and white web, I'm going to do that. And I started working on the Bean, and that changed like 6 times before I got it right and such. But I've always had a passion for fantasy, almost more than science fiction or superheroes. I just love that genre of adventure. And I look at Mawazaki's work. I remember getting Nausicaa,
Mm-hmm.
Galaxy 999, Star Blazers. I can remember watching Star Blazers, which was just these epic operas. And then I think we lucked out too. We also had that great series. We had Robotech when I was in high school,
Right.
and so all of a sudden we had this space opera for teens at 4:30 in the afternoon with just violence and mechs and people were dying, and I'd never seen that in a cartoon before. And
Mm-hmm.
realistic storytelling, and I'm like, okay, it just kind of fueled the fire, and
Right.
and yet at the same time, I didn't know this was the path that I would end up walking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of gone back full circle because now I'm doing fantasy gaming art again. I'm just finishing up another monster manual for a third party company. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, but there's been many influences of several people, artists and non-artists. But I got to say, it was my family that really kind of helped fuel that fire for the desire to just create. Even
Mm-hmm.
though my dad struggled with it, I think at the beginning, are you really going to make a living out of this? Can you take care of a family? I mean, this is not the strongest profession, and yet now, he's like one of my biggest fans.
It's always good to flip the hard ones.
It is. I'm grateful for that. Yeah, flipping
Mm-hmm.
the hard ones on
That's right. Now you were saying like so your first project as a webcomic was the Beam. You said you went through several iterations of that project. Now walk us through a little bit of that process. Like what exactly did you have to correct, or where at what point did you have to course correct to make to get it to where you wanted to, where you liked it?
Well, so two things happened with the being, and the story's not done. And in fact,
Mhm.
I want to get back to it, but you're weighing the financial options, what's feeding your family at the moment.
Right.
And Bean is a niche.
Mhm.
I already know it's a niche. It's a black and white fantasy comic in a digitalized color world, so it has a very hard audience to grab. But
Right.
once people get into it, then I get emails all the time going, "Hey, when's the next one? When's the next one? When's the next one?" But when I started it, um, I was a perfectionist.
Mhm.
And so I get so far in the story, and then I go, oh, no, I don't like the format. So then I would redo the format. And then I go, oh, no, no, I don't like the format. And I would redo the format. And then someone said, well, make it like one of those kids' books that has artwork and text. And I said,
Mhm.
okay, I'm going to try that. So we did that. And that was a mistake. And,
Mhm.
I learned, I actually, when the second book came out, the second graphic novel, I went through kind of a crisis with
Mhm.
I worked with a team to kind of put some stuff out, and that team totally fell apart,
Wow.
which is one of the reasons why I like working kind of alone on my own
Mhm.
personal projects. But I took a year and a half off, and I
Mhm.
realized two things. The first thing I realized was I should have followed my gut.
Mhm.
My gut was telling me how to do it, and I wasn't listening to my gut. The second thing was to take away the perfectionist attitude that I was putting towards it
Right.
and just focus on getting the story done. And once I got to that point, I started scripting the bean out, and then it just started to flow. And that was when it got nominated for an Eisner the following year. And that was in 2011. I realized that I was on the right track. I didn't win it, but that was okay.
Mhm.
I still got nominated. I'll take the nomination. But
Oh yeah.
it allowed me to realize that, yeah, I should have listened to my gut. I should have followed my own gut feeling.
Gotcha.
But
Now,
go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I don't know, and now I'm going through that same conundrum where I'm like, okay, I'm coloring it, and I'm like, okay, but I'm not finishing the story. The story's not progressing because I'm focusing on something else. And so now I had to make a decision. What am I going to do? And I'm not there yet. I'm still figuring that out. We have a publisher looking at it, so it's kind of in all sorts of chaotic limbo.
Okay, because I have Back the Bean. I think I have, what is it, 4 volumes, 5 volumes?
You got 4 volumes, so
Yeah.
I have enough for a 5th volume. I just haven't done it because I have enough for like 7 Kickstarters this year, and I'm just like, what do I do first?
Listen, it's not a bad problem to have.
No, it's not. It's just figuring out how to deal with that monster, because that's a whole nother monster.
Yeah. All right. That's wow. That's incredible. Because now here's something that I found interesting. Because you went from the Bean, right, and you did this card game, No Mercy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I found that fascinating because, like, you know, I have my own comic. I do the Oswald Chronicles, and I'm like, and I saw you go from one to the other. And I'm like, whoa, what's that? You know, so what brought that about?
Well, okay, so one of the things is I decided a long time ago that I wanted to be an illustrator. I didn't want to be known for one thing. And that has its positives and negatives. So I started to build other streams of income to come in. So I wasn't focusing solely on the Bean. I was focusing on a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I thought, you know what, I've always wanted to get back into game art because I like doing games. And I thought, you know, I'm going to take something normal and I'm going to, you know, something that we're all used to. And I want to create the game that I would have played as a kid. And No Mercy kind of just evolved out of it. And I thought, you know, this is pretty fun. And then we ran it and we did this great Kickstarter and it did really, really well. And then I started the second one because I was really happy because I like having more than just one style of product on my table at conventions. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a second version of that. So I started that one. But right before I did it, I got approached by some investors that wanted me to have them take over the game and everything else. And they put it all over the East Coast and they, you know, all these promises. And then there was an issue in the contract that I didn't see or just kind of ignored. And at the 11th hour, I backed out. I just said, this is not right. You know, when you got to listen to your gut. If your gut says it's not right, no matter how. Yeah. And when someone writes a contract, they're writing it for them. They're not writing it for you. Yeah. So you got to just watch that to be careful. And so then I ran the kick. I thought, you know what, I'm going to run the kick. Because I had no idea. I had no idea what was going to happen. I was frustrated. You know, I was tired. Bean was kind of on hiatus for a moment because it was just, there was a lot going on. I was working several, you know, jobs. I had just been laid off as an art director for a firm I'd been working for 15 years. And I was just kind of like, I was going through my own personal emotional crisis. And then all of a sudden I started that Kickstarter for the second game because that game is set up perfectly to just build factions for it. And I gave up on the Kickstarter about 7 days before it ended. I just let it run out. I didn't push it. I didn't try. I was just like, I'm done. So that Kickstarter failed, and it allowed me. I was just kind of lost, and I thought, you know, what am I going to do? And I was watching someone else draw these cartoons of this known property, and they were getting thousands of hits on it. And I'm like going, what am I doing wrong? So I drew a comic that involved D&D that I used to play as a kid, and I play occasionally. And it had 6,000 hits, you know, of likes, not just hits. I mean, likes. And it had like 3,000 shares, and it was all over the place. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this the next day. Did another one, exact same thing. All of a sudden, I'm doing a daily. And then 4 months later, I had the biggest Kickstarter I've ever had. You know, I ran a Kickstarter in January, went against all the odds on that, and we raised almost $100,000.
Wow.
So, you know, you look at all that now. We spent a lot too just to make that book happen, but you've dealt with kicks. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But it was that I've never really looked back on that because Life of the Party now, we're in our 5th year and I have enough comics to do 10 books.
Wow. That's,
You know,
yeah.
and I've only got 3 out.
Like 3, exactly. I'm like, how many do I have? Because I have them all, and I'm like, how many do I have? I'm like, I only got 3.
Yeah, we're gonna do, and I'll probably run a kit this fall. I'm waiting. I didn't want to do it during the summer or the spring because I think no one really knows where they're going to be at right now.
True enough.
So I'm waiting till the fall to do it, and then I'll run it, closer to a couple of shows that we actually have in the fall that should still hopefully be there. I don't know. We live in a crazy moment right now, and as an artist, you know very much how that is. We rely on 2 different sets of income, and one of it involves traveling.
That's true. Yeah. Now, as far as process goes with Life of the Party, what do you like? How do you break it down? Like, do you sit down and write out like 10, 20 gags at a time and then illustrate them?
So Life of the Party is interesting. Because its fan base has grown so quickly and it's bigger than what I've ever imagined it to be. I get people sending me stuff all the time. Or when I'll post a comment, someone will make a comment and I'll go, that's a comic right there. That comic just, the coolest thing about RPGers is they help fuel the fire. And they keep the inspiration constantly going because we all relate to each other. We look at it, and I get my own viewpoints in at times, or I'll look at something and I go, "Oh, that's kind of ironic. I'm going to add that there." So it was easy to do once no one could hang out anymore. All of a sudden, I was drawing characters in masks. So there's jokes that I can do, but as a gamer, you're still going to deal with it. And so the process for the Bean is or not the Bean, but Life of the Party is I'll sit down, and if I look at it as a line of text, or sometimes it's an image, but most of the time it's a line of text. So I take it and I put it in my phone. So I've got this huge bullet point list of different quotes or different sayings or things that I've read. And then I'll sit down and I will pencil out between 3 or 4 in a day and ink. So I usually work for about 2 hours and I'll get 4 comics drawn. And then I have a flattener. And then I will color everything, and I'm actually averaging about 6 to 7 comics a week, just to have an offer. So that allows me to travel. It allows me to do things because I've always got comics set up and ready to go.
Backlogged. All right, cool. I got somebody asking in the chat, do you have any plans of making a card game or a board game from Life of the Party?
Oh, yeah, we want to. I've already got the board game written out.
Wow.
I haven't done it yet, but I have got the board game written out, and the art is there. I just have to finish the 2 games I'm working on right now for this other company, and then finish a couple other things. But the goal is it's either the game's going to get kickstarted this year, or it's going to be a book that gets kickstarted this year. I haven't decided yet.
Wow, that's cool. I'm because you're doing comic strips with Life of the Party. I'm more of a linear story type guy. So So I was wondering, have you ever had plans of maybe doing not necessarily like a long thing, maybe like a one shot or like some kind of weird campaign where you do a standard comic, like where you see the characters? Huh? Okay.
I want Life of the Party to evolve. And I like the one-shot gag. I'd never written that, and that is pure hit and miss because it's like throwing crap on a wall. You're just hoping something sticks. But at the same time, with Bean, I love storytelling, and so I'm playing with ways. How do I appease both worlds? And I haven't figured it out yet. I want to definitely do a Sunday. I am influenced by Watterson and a bunch of the other ones. I think it would have its advantage. The only issue I find with long-term storytelling is my comic would evolve into very Berkeley Breath feel, which is totally fine,
right?
But it will pull away from one audience, and so I know that could happen. And kind of prepping how do I make that happen because I still want to keep the fantasy element. But you still have to make your comic relevant. when you're dealing with something that's constantly updating every single day that deals with a 1-day gag. Or a multiple day gag or a multiple day story. The nice thing about a linear format with that is you can get a lot more sensitive. Not like bad sensitive. You can put a lot more emotion. You can show more sadness, more. And what's funny is people expect the comics to have even a single page because you have to tell that whole story in one single page. They expect them always to be a joke, but in reality, they're not always a joke. They could be a wide variety of different feelings. And so it's based on levels of that. But I definitely have ideas to start doing some actual comics. It's just finding the right way to do it and have that asterisk feel to it.
Right. Okay, that's cool. Because I'm definitely looking forward to that. Now, let's go back a little bit.
Yeah.
What type of what type of training are you self-taught or did you go through any type of training? What type of course did you take? That sort of thing.
I am self-taught. I got out of high school thinking that I was the most incredible artist that ever walked the face of the earth, and really I was not. In fact, I was probably way down on that list. No, you're not. And I went and I left. I went on a mission for 2 years to Argentina, and so I took 2 years away from the States, which I recommend to do something. You go away, find some stuff out about life, because I came home a lot more humble about what I had compared to seeing what other people did not have.
Right.
And we have it pretty good here, a lot more rights than we might realize. But at the same time, as I got back in, I thought I was going to be a dancer. I loved swing. I was teaching swing. I was a blast. I took 13th in the U.S. Open for Lindy Hop.
Wow.
I was having so much fun, but there's no money in dance, and it's kind of hard when your family starts to grow. So also I had 2 kids, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And my brother decides to start looking for a job for himself. He graduated from college, and then he calls me up and he goes, oh, by the way, you might want to go try this one place. They're looking for a cartoonist. So I went and I applied for the job and when I went there to talk to him, they said, well, we think we have who we want, but if you come in tomorrow, we'll test you out. And I said, okay. So I walk in the next day. They gave me this assignment, and then they gave me another assignment, and then they gave me 2 work assignments. And the next thing I know, as I'm leaving, the owner of the company calls me into his office, and he goes, here's the deal. He goes, I saw what you did. He goes, do you want a job right now? You start tomorrow. And they called the other dude and told him not to come in, that they found someone else. I felt really bad, but I said, okay. And then what he did was he took the time, and this was in a print shop, and my first manager there was he'd been trained to do animation, and he took the time to teach me
that's cool.
How to improve my skills. Now, this was way before, Photoshop was kind of brand new. There was, a lot of different elements there. They were using Corel Paint for a lot. InDesign had not come out yet, and we were still doing everything on plates. With Ruby. Quark was there, the most dreaded program ever. And then all of a sudden, so at this press shop, and I worked there for 3.5 years, I went in and I learned everything I could. I learned how to strip. I learned how to the presses, how everything worked from front end to back end. And within a year, I was their art director. And I was getting trained constantly by people that had gone through, college and what they had learned and stuff. And we did really, really well. And then we had a quote family tragedy. We lost my wife's dad. And I was kind of, I was doing 17 hours a day at a print shop and just constantly working. You're then trying to do your own thing on the side. And then another company came in and they said that we'd done work for them. They go, hey, you know anyone who wants to be an art director? And I said, sure. I just happen to know a guy. And so I walked in and I got hired on with this company, and I was there for 15 years, and we helped them grow from this tiny little small company to this huge, massive corporation. And what was really well was that they allowed me to travel. They allowed me to work on the beam. They allowed me to follow my dream. And then after about 15 years, so I'm constantly was being trained. and constantly improving. And if I didn't know something, I'd go get a book and figure it out. Or I'd go, so I have a pretty good library of art books and stuff. And I can remember about 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years, somewhere around there. And it was on Father's Day, or the day after Father's Day. And that's when I got laid off, was the day after Father's Day.
Oof.
And but my boss, we had talked about 3 or 4, we had talked several times, the owner of the company. And he said, you're not happy. I know you're not happy. And my reviews were all good. Everything was great. There was no reason why. And he said, he goes, you need to have a push. He goes, I'll give you a nice severance. He goes, but I'm going to push you. And he let me go.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, I was out on my own. And, and I have a deep appreciation and faith in God and stuff like that. And the first major job I got was from an Episcopalian deacon back east on a book about God.
Awesome.
So I'm like, okay, who do I trust here? And all of a sudden, the work just kept coming in, and it has never stopped. I have been so blessed that we were able to just keep moving forward, and it still hasn't stopped. We look at this wonderful thing, but as for training, all my training has literally been hands-on. It's been figuring it out. If I find out, how do I improve this? How do I improve layout? How do I improve design? Well, I go find the people that I look up to and go, well, where did they learn and what books did they use and how did they study it? And I'm always asking questions.
Wow. That's incredible. So many different people do it so many different ways.
That's the cool thing about art. It's constantly evolving. I turned 50 next year. I don't feel it, but I'll turn 50 next year. But I wasn't even happy with my art until I was in my early 30s.
Right.
And now I'm finally getting into a position. I'm watching my art change again. It's developing again. It's getting stronger. And so I think as a creator, if you're willing to step back and be taught, knock your pride down a lot and listen, realize that when you get a critique, that they're talking about the artwork and not you as an individual. So you're learning to break yourself apart from that. You begin to grow, and you can always grow. Even there's no stopping the age limit. If Jack Kirby could start drawing for Marvel in his 40s, I'm a little bit older than that, and what's stopping me from doing whatever I want? And so it's just it comes down to drive. What are you willing to do to make it happen?
Frazetta, I'm pretty sure you know this already, but for those who don't, went through several strokes and had to teach himself to draw with his left hand.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, if you want to see an artist that came out late in life, go look at Grandma Moses. She didn't start painting until she was in her 70s. And she got huge, artistically. I don't know how she looked personally, but she did some great. She found her audience, and that audience just soaked it in. And I think that goes with us. We find our own audiences. We have to.
Yeah, definitely. That's the one thing about being an independent publisher and doing your own thing. You have to really, really seek your audience. And find those people who are gonna, who want to be with you.
Right, and then also at the same time realize that it's a long process. These are 20 years or 20. For me, it's now 25 years. It's 25 years worth of growth of getting myself to this point, and my audience is still growing, but it's been a long-term process. It's kind of like been farming. You plant your little seeds, and then it'll grow and grow and grow. And I think we live in a day and age where we don't have to rely on a publisher to try to get our stuff out there. The internet has really allowed us, especially with the webcomic format and with all the different platforms for social media. And I'm not just thinking, if you don't like one, well, you should still use it, because you never know where some of that audience is going to come in to feed to your, as a stream. And you really can get away without having to have a publisher. Now,
Yes.
your audience can grow faster and bigger, and I think that makes a couple people nervous.
Oh yeah, definitely. It definitely does. You can see it in the way some of the companies react.
Mm-hmm.
you know, to way things. And Marvel has always been twitchy about the way they act and trying to take up as much shelf space as they can. And that happened, around the '90s. That's when they started that whole thing when Image came about to try
Mm-hmm.
to push everybody off.
Well, and here's the other thing that I think works for us. We struggle to get our books into comic shops all the time. No one wants, it's like, okay, I know how it works. The big three take up 95% of whatever that comic book shop's buying. And that's okay. Then they've got 5% left of whatever funds that they have. And then they, divide it up into the next big level indies. And then they get about 2% left that they can buy anything else. Well, I'm not going to fit into that 2%. I already know no matter how great my comic is to them. I'm the one that has to make that phone call. Diamond is really not that generous to indies at all. Stipulations and everything else, and they used to approach me each year, but I just really don't have an interest when I can sell more books online now than I could, and internationally than I could anywhere else. I mean, with Kickstarter and Indiegogo and all these different platforms to help get out there, we don't really need to be in a brick and mortar as much as I would love to be. I like being in brick and mortar, don't get me wrong, but we have found a business model that we don't need it.
Yeah, and it's funny, because I printed my first book in 91, 92.
Yeah, you started a little bit before me.
Yeah, I started right after high school. I'm a couple years older than you, so but yeah, I mean, we went from 14 distributors where you could sell like a small indie can sell.
Group, you had a couple of the other ones that you
right.
could.
Yeah, we could sell 4, 5, 6, 7,000 copies, right? Then once it went down to Diamond, you're lucky if you can get over 1,000.
If that.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just like, this is just murder, but it is what it is. But things are shaking up, so you never know. Hopefully there'll be a couple more distributors.
Yeah, well, and we have the other advantage too that I like when you buy direct from an indie, the indie gets it all back.
Right.
And that's so much more enjoyable than, let's say, 6%, 7% off the MSR, and not even off MSRP sometimes, because the company will buy. If you go through a publisher, it's like 6%. If you try to go straight with Diamond, you're going to lose 60% straight off the top as it is, whatever your cover prices. And so, you're like, well, how do I keep publishing books? And if you have to buy your books back because they didn't sell, well, that's tough. I don't want that.
No.
And so, why go with that? I got to hold stuff and such. And Amazon, I mean, they're good, but they're not good for indies either. I find that, they'll buy one book at a time or 2 books at a time.
Right.
But screw that, Whereas when we do it ourselves, I'll move, a Kickstarter, I'll easily move 1,000 books without even thinking about it. And then you add the shows on, and the shows, that year, you'll sell more in a year than you will if you've gone through a regular distributor.
Right.
And they can't quite grasp that how can these indies make money, and yet we are. But when we have a situation like this, then we're totally online. But we already know the system. We've already figured out a way to keep relevant and keep us moving, and I think that's beneficial to us.
Yeah. Now, let's get back a little bit more on the creative end.
Yeah.
Now, so you're doing Life of the Party, trying to get back to Bean. Like, what is it that you're currently working on? Obviously, you're doing projects for other people. You're doing your own stuff.
So I'm currently working on Life of the Party right now.
Right.
Usually when I start my day starts about 7:30 in the morning, and I work till 10 o'clock on Life of the Party, any other artistic projects that I have. that are for me. It could be a print, it could be mugs, it could be books. It's a wide variety of stuff. Life of the Party just turned out to be the best merchandising aspect that I've ever had. Bean's hard to merchandise, and no one wants a shirt with Bean on. Well, someone might, but a lot of people, that's not their interest. But Life of the Party, when you draw the Black Knight and you draw Gandalf yelling at each other, "You shall not pass," that's a really big draw for some, with your characters within it. And so that, marketing is a lot easier that way. But then you run into, then after 10 o'clock, then I start working on whatever other projects I have. So currently I'm working on a money comic for an Indy. And so we try to tackle 3 to 4 pages a week for them. And then I've got another Goblin game, board game that I'm working on, and we've got all the card art done. Now we're working on the actual board, and we'll get that one done. And then I've been really lucky and blessed. I've done I'm finishing the 3rd monster manual for this company as a D&D 5th edition add-on. And I'm the only artist. So I get 120 monsters that I get to draw and design page by page. And so I'm doing that one. And then I have another game that got pitched to me to do where it's based on, it's fantasy and apocalyptic. And just finished all the covers to the game guide and the dungeon guide and everything else. Now we just have to go in and I'll have about 80 monsters to draw for that one.
Wow.
And then commissions that come in, I still have several Kickstarter rewards. I've got about 16 big pieces to draw. So I like eating, so I always stay busy. You got to keep, as much as you want. There's got to be balance. I'm hoping that in June, or actually more in July, this whole kind of shutdown has actually opened up opportunities for me to focus a little bit more on trying to finish the game for Life of the Party, and trying to finish some of the other projects that I'm working on, and get those moving, so I can launch them in the fall. And I think that's kind of a crucial thing. Is this has allowed, this stay-at-home thing, which doesn't always work for a lot of people, but for an artist, it's like, man, I got time. I can draw. I can do this. I can, and we still need that social interaction. And I miss the shows dearly. I really, really do. But I'm like, dang, I got time to work on some other projects. So, but the most important thing is learning how to balance that. So I make sure that I'm drawing for me in the morning first, and then I work on whatever client work comes in for the rest of the day or for.
That's cool. Now, I was going to ask you, do you have any assistants that help you out at all, or are you just one-man banding it all on your own?
I'm literally mostly a one-man band that can do it all on, but I actually now have 2 flatteners that I use.
Okay.
So my mom, who's a retired educator, is my flattener for business. And since she's an artist, she loves it. She's got her tablet and works in Photoshop for me and sets it all up so it comes back the way I want it. A little vibrant. And then my son, who used to do a lot of the shows with me, him and his wife now also flat for me on the side. So they flat Life of the Party comics for me. And that's a huge save for me because I don't have to do the flatting. I mean, flatting takes about a half hour to 45 minutes off of it for me, and by having them do it. And I'm giving them extra money, my son and his wife, they're newly married with a baby and both in college. So I can help out. I'm going to help out. My mom, she needs something to do. So,
so it helps out everyone.
Right. And, finding someone, the monster book is the one that I'm working with a crew. And that's the first time I've really worked with a writer and then someone else doing the layout. Which is nice because they'll give me the page and then I build around the text and we have a good discussion about moving stuff around.
Right.
Oh, but for the most part, I learned everything that I could so I could be a one-man show if I needed to be. So, and that has its advantages and its disadvantages. One of my worries is always, everything lays on your shoulders.
Right.
And if you screw it up, you screw it up.
Oh yeah.
You got to own it.
exactly. I mean, at least you also know that you can complete it. That it'll
Right.
always finish because of you.
Oh yeah, and don't get me wrong, I would love to work with teams, but I find it hard to work with teams when they're not married to your project or not married to the project that you're working on.
Mm,
So I've always been like, yeah, if you're willing to spread it out a little bit, I'll do the whole thing. And a lot of companies or a lot of private small indie companies kind of like that because it's all in one spot. They're not paying another guy to do layout. They're not paying someone else to do this. They're not paying someone else to do that.
right,
And if I bring anybody in with me, then I'm the one paying them, not them.
right.
So
That's that's really cool. Now I'm gonna ask you one more question about the beam.
yeah, go ahead.
Now, um, do you have a conclusion for the story?
Oh yeah, I have an ending. I just haven't got there
Okay,
yet. It's got like two more books to hit that ending.
gotcha. Okay, cool.
So there
Cool.
is an ending there. I
Uh
just
huh.
haven't got there yet.
Right. Okay, yeah, because I know how it is. It's hard. Like sometimes I'll ask people that question. They're like, "Oh man, I don't know." you know.
Actually, I wrote the ending first.
Oh, that's good.
So I had
Uh
an anchor. I needed an anchor. Uh,
huh.
it's the middle that gets wonky. It's like, okay, how am I going to get to the ending now? And
Right.
to be honest, I got to a certain point, and maybe it was just my mentality of dealing with the being. It started to go darker than I realized it was going,
Mm-hmm.
and people like that and all, but we were dealing with some situations and watching some things in real life, and I'm like, I can't move that forward. So I did take a step back because of that.
Right.
But I'm starting to get that inkling inside, going, okay, it's time to go back. It's time to go back. So now I got
Mm-hmm.
to just figure out how do I go back, and I haven't figured that one out yet. And it might be one page a week or whatever, but a lot of
Mm-hmm.
it will depend on life of the party and stuff like that. I've got to be really careful how I balance that because, like I said, life of the party is my biggest
Right.
uh, property that I've ever done. Being now is literally just a labor of love.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Now, do you already have the scripts written out for everything, or you're just working your way to that
I
ending?
got most of the script out,
Oh, okay.
but I haven't got it all out. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Um,
Yeah.
I locked my ending in so I could make the route. I could vary in the route. I can
Mm-hmm.
choose how I'm going to change stuff and move things around if need be.
Right. Okay.
So I have a direction. It's just getting there is the big issue.
All right. Cool. Now we're coming towards the end of this.
Uh-huh.
So now I got a couple more questions, and I have some funky questions I want to ask. It's kind of like a
Ask
game I
away.
like to play.
Ask away. Anything you
All
want.
right. So, if you had your druthers and you had the golden ticket and you were called up to one of the big companies or even any one of the other companies and they told you could pick any comic book, any character, and you could do it your way, however you want to do it. What would you do?
Oh, all right. So it would have to be. So one of the comics that got me going was the Nam. Do you remember the Nam?
Oh
Drawn by
yeah,
Michael
yeah,
Golden?
Michael Golden, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. The first 13 issues was probably the best comic series I've ever read. It was
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. It was so well done. Um, I would want, and honestly, it would probably be, well, okay, so I jump back and forth. I would have to say, give me something like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what company that would do that anymore because there's so many variables of that bean counter of making it
Right.
all work. I mean, even Image has that same issue where even though they'll take almost anybody, they still have to go with what's marketable and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had that golden ticket, I would love to probably. I would like to do Bean. I seriously would. I would like to do Bean complete.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love it to go through like I think Boom would be probably the best option. I do like what Boom produces.
Producers. Mhm.
because I'd be able to do it in the format that I wanted it to if I could keep it like a mouse guard format. Because I love what Dave Peterson does. I mean, Dave Peterson was a huge trendsetter.
Mhm.
Going, why does a comic have to look like a regular 6x9? I'm going to do it like an 8x8.
Right.
So I would say boom, and I would say let me do the bean. If
Mhm.
not, I've always wanted to work on ElfQuest,
Okay.
and I would love to do like my take on Wolverine. I would love to play with Wolverine. He was always my favorite character.
That'd
But
be
to
cool.
me, the best Wolverine story is not when he's fighting superheroes.
Uh,
It's when he's nitty gritty fighting, taking down like the Japanese mafia or someone or whatever. Those were always the best stories. You didn't need a superhero. You could have this. It was more like a James Bond kind of story, but yet with this gritty outsider. So I'd like to do something like that.
okay. That's cool. That's cool. Now, like, I got a bunch of these weird questions.
Bring them on.
I started this, so it's a one or the other,
Okay.
right? And then some of them I'll ask you and why. So we'll see.
All right.
Here's one for you: Byrne or Perez?
That's tough. I like Byrne's run.
Mm-hmm.
He had a great rider with him too.
Yes.
Made his run so well.
Mm-hmm.
I like Perez's style a little better. He was a little bit more. It had a little bit more ump to it, where Byrne was very loose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Perez, I think, had a better grasp on layout than Byrne did.
Right.
So I would go with Perez.
Okay. Cool.
That was
Don.
That was not nice.
Well, this is the thing. You know, all right. Well, here's another one for you that'll probably throw you.
It's giving you a bad time.
Don Bluth or Chuck Jones?
Well, okay. Don Bluth, and there's a reason for that.
Okay, what is it?
Don Bluth was in Argentina 50 years before I was, but in the same area.
Oh, okay.
And I got to meet his cousin.
Mm-hmm.
I get to know his cousin really well, and I had a chance to meet Don Bluth, and I was able to talk Spanish to him.
Oh.
And he actually told his handler to leave him alone while he chatted with me because we had something in common that was not art-based.
Oh, okay.
So it's hands down Bluth. Plus Dragon's Lair. You can't beat Dragon's Lair.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Got it. Okay.
You know, look at
The
that.
Secret Name, yeah, that's the one.
Chuck Jones is a great. I love his stuff. I don't get me wrong, and he's definitely a pioneer and a trendsetter.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bluth tried some great stuff. I just wish that he would have gotten the love that he deserved for a couple of his pictures.
Right.
You know, I mean, even if you look at it, Titan AE is a beautifully well done piece that just did not get love from the studio. Now he's got plenty of stinkers out there too.
Yeah.
But when he excels, his work is just beyond anything.
Yes.
So.
Okay. Disney or Miyazaki?
Miyazaki.
Okay.
Hands down. Can't even argue that one.
Lord of the Rings or Star Wars?
Lord of the Rings, hands down.
Got you. Yeah, yes. I agree. I don't know if you're familiar with these two, but Firefly or Farscape?
Farscape had a much longer story run than Firefly, but I think Firefly had way better elements of wild fantasy.
Okay, cool. Here's another zinger. Kirby or Ditko?
I'm a Ditko fan.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, I like Kirby, but I like Steve's work better.
Gotcha.
I like Kirby's story.
Yes.
You know, but no, I like Steve's work
better. Calvin and Hobbes or Pogo?
Well, Calvin Hobbes was influenced by Pogo, along with almost every other artist that does strips. I mean, if you look at Hero Bear and the Kid, you look at Bone, you look at all these stuff. Now, I was not young enough to enjoy Pogo.
Yeah.
So for me, it was Calvin and Hobbes. So I grew up with Calvin and Hobbes. I remember the first strip that came out, and then we would cut the newspaper up and we would we'd create our own books.
Mm-hmm.
Always a fight with my brother who could get to the paper first to cut out Calvin and Hobbes.
Gotcha.
So Calvin and Hobbes has a place in my heart. But I love Pogo, and as I've gotten older, I've gone and looked at other people's influences, and I've really been inspired by what he did there. And if you want to take it one step further, you can go Finding Nemo in Slumberland. It's actually the kicker.
Yes. Have you ever seen the cartoon?
That's a great cartoon too, and that's totally underrated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a little dark.
Yes, it is. It is. You know, but it has Plug in it, so it's fun.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah. We'll do this one as the last one. Godzilla or Gamera?
Godzilla.
Okay. Cool. So, Travis, is there anything else you want to tell the fans out there? You know, websites, anything?
Well, you can find everything. You know, follow me on Facebook or Instagram or anywhere else. I'm on beanleafpress.com is my website. And you can just, if you want to pick stuff up, you can go through the store. I'll sign anything. And I draw on people's pieces. I think the biggest thing, though, is during this time, I'm drawing free comic pages or coloring pages to play with. Anybody can download it and just use it. You know, we need, you know, that little stress relief, pull out your crayons. But I think the biggest thing that I would want to leave with somebody is, doesn't matter how old you are, if you want to follow this dream or live this adventure, it's all about drive. How bad do you want it? And only you can answer that. I can't answer it for you. And you can't tell me how bad you want it. You actually have to show me. It was the best advice I was ever challenged with when I got started years ago. And it was at a convention. It was actually at San Diego when I learned that lesson. And, you know, you're going to get, the minute you start on your road, and I know, JD, that you probably have gone through this, but everything in the world is going to tell you you can't make it. People just tell you you just can't do it. I don't believe that anymore. I believe that you can. If you want it bad enough, you figure out a way. And what are you willing to give up? You know, for me, it was like, I don't watch many movies anymore. Or I don't play as many video games because I want to be the guy that creates them. I don't want to be the guy that just sits there and just goes, oh, you know, I want more. So the key is you can do this, but you've got to want it bad enough. No one's going to give it to you. You know, you have to figure it out. And, you know, from one indie to another, you totally understand that.
Yep. Now I do have a question with that though, because I found that really interesting. Now, who challenged you like that? Was that a fan or was it another creator?
Well, I remember I was at San Diego, and this is when you could buy tickets to get in. And it was a year, I think I was with a couple, no, I wasn't with anybody. I was just, I was walking around, what was I? I don't remember, it was a long time ago. I was there, and I might have been selling something. You know, I think we were sharing a table, and I was walking around, and I saw this artist, and you know, you hope anyone looks at your portfolio. You know, you're hoping someone will just take a moment. Now I get it; shows you can't, but this artist sat down and he flips through my portfolio, and he looks at me and he goes, "Why aren't you published?" And I said, "I don't really know." And he goes, "Shut up." He goes, "How bad do you want this?" He goes, if you want this bad enough, you're just gonna go do it. And when he told me that, and it was James Owen that told me that, and he said, get out there, you know, just show me that you want this. He goes, don't tell me, you know. He goes, talk is cheap. And I took that application, and the following year I brought back a published piece. In fact, I think I brought back the first incarnation of Bean as a comic.
Right.
And I never looked back. And then I can remember at the same time, and it might have been right before, I was walking around. I don't know. Are you familiar with William Stout's work?
Yes.
Okay, so I was standing next to this other artist, and Bill is talking to this kid or a young man or whatever. And Bill's just telling him, be an indie. This is, you know, that's where the money is. That's what you want to do. That's where the freedom is being indie. And And I didn't say a word because, you're awestruck. You don't want to say anything. You're like, oh my goodness. And 10 years later, I said, you have no idea who I am. I said, I was standing next to another artist and you were giving him all this advice. I go, I don't even know if he took it. I go, but I did. Here's my book. And I've been friends with Bill ever since.
Wow.
And,
Nice.
And he gets a book every time I publish a new one. I make sure he gets one. But it's moments like that. You never know who you're going to influence and how. Because I might talk to one artist and talk about how they can get to it, but it might be the artist standing right over there that's just listening that gets it.
Right.
And so, two people, and I've had other people that I've met over the years that have had similar, I've had similar experiences with. But it's sometimes you just need that realization of, someone being direct with you, not going, oh, you're so great, or you're just awesome. More like, how bad do you want this? What?
Right.
Shut up! Don't tell me. Just show me. Go do it. And none of them told me not to do it, and they also didn't tell me that once I published that would be it. You have to keep, once you start walking down this road, you got to keep inventing and keep adding and keep adding and keep adding, or you get forgotten very, very quickly.
Yes, this is very true. We are like sharks.
No, we are. We're very much like sharks.
You can't stop moving.
But yet at the same time, I think that's what keeps us alive.
Yeah.
And honestly, what an incredible way to live a life. You when I see your books, look at what you did. You did something that no one else did. You did it, and it's yours, and it's your story, and it is just for you. And I can't tell people what that feels like. Unless you've done it,
right,
you have no idea what it is to hold that book in your hand and go, this is 2 years worth of work right here. Yep. And it is incredible. Oh my gosh, it's a drug. And then you go, oh, I do another one.
Yep.
Which is why I do so many different projects.
Oh, which is incredible. Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. Because, I mean, I know a lot of people who they started with me and then they would leave. And 2 years later, they'll come back. Can I get back in? And it's that thing. I've never seen a person leave who doesn't come back wanting to get back in.
Right. Oh, very much so.
Yeah, because it is a drug.
And that's kind of where you and I were talking, I get to that point where it's like, I don't want to work with people that are like that because they don't get it. It's right. Not what they're married to. They want that glory, but they don't want to, or that they want that excitement, but sometimes they just don't want to work for that excitement.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they want to work their timetable, and their timetable is too slow for my timetable. I want it now. I want to get out there. Let's get it done.
Right.
And that could be my West Coast mentality. And I think New York's very much the same way. You guys are hustle and bustle too. We get it done. There's no like, I'm not waiting. And I've worked with other people from other areas, and they're like, yeah, I'm taking my time. And I'm like, you're costing me money.
Exactly. I mean, on my project, on Tall Tales, we're 600-700 pages in.
Yeah.
The Oswald Chronicles, I'm close to 1,000 pages in.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And I'm doing Kickstarters. I get them printed, I fulfill, and I start a new one.
Exactly. You just keep going, and that's the cool thing about it. And who else? Brian Polito's got that down. He took that debt. And Brian and I were talking once the other day, and he said, "Trav, you got to get this where you're doing 4 kicks a year." Yeah. And I'm like, Brian, I can't do that. I just one guy.
He does work with a big team.
Well, he's got a team now, but they didn't start that way. And my wife works for a high school, so she's gone. And all my hired help, all my kids are out of the house, but the 11-year-old, and I'm not going to do that to the 11-year-old. But you're right. If I could get it up where I could do a kick every 4 months, that would be amazing.
Oh yeah.
And maybe next year I might start that, and hire some people to come in and work for me. But you know how that goes. But like I said, we live in such a great day and age. Man, we have so many options for us that even in the 90s we didn't have, or the early 2000s.
Yep.
And
No. Yeah.
and look, anybody can do this.
Yeah. I wish I had these options when I started. When I was 19, woof, I worked with a crew of 9 people, and these were all young, hungry artists. You know, it would have went nuts, but we would have probably exploded because we're young. We didn't know what we were doing. We were crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and have you noticed? I mean, let's see. I was born in 71. What year were you born in?
68.
68. So you're a little bit old. Yeah, not much. But I've noticed that, you know, before I could work hours upon hours upon hours, and I am starting to slowly slow down, and I don't know if I like that.
Right.
Because I want that drive that I had when I was 20.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and people say, "Oh yeah, Trav, you're one of the hardest working artists I've ever met." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm starting to feel like I'm slowing down. I want to do more. I want to go out and do more."
Right.
So I just can't do it like I used to.
I mean, unfortunately, I mean, you know, the only thing that keeps me going is push-ups. You know, just gotta constantly work out. Huh? Yeah. And I don't do anywhere near as much of them as I should.
Me neither. I don't walk as much as I should, but I'm trying.
Yeah, that's rough. You know, but we have comic books, and that's the one thing we love. And this will be it for now. So try to you already said your party words. You got into a whole bunch of other stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, so one more time, let everybody know what websites they can reach you at.
Find me under Travis J. Hanson on Facebook or Instagram. Just look for the Life of the Party cartoon. That's for my moniker. Don't Google Travis Hanson, because you might get more than you bargained for from an underwear model, which is not me. And then you can find me at Bean, BEAN, Leaf, LEAF, Press, PRESS.com. And you can find my store, commissions, anything you want. And the goal is to always, you know, it's just to create art, help people create.
Awesome. So thank you so much, everybody. If you like what you heard, hit like, hit subscribe, share out the video, let people know what's going on with these indies. And I'll be talking to you soon. JD out. Have a great night.